or I'm not expecting this video, just like any of the other Rivals videos I post on my channel, they're probably not going to get very many views. Also expecting this one to probably not even see, I don't know, maybe not even a couple hundred views at all in its lifetime, but I'm going to post it anyway because I am a support main. In fact, I've been playing support characters, characters that can always provide healing or some sort of crowd control since the early days of Smite. See, in Smite, there's a wide range of mages, as they're called. Basically, there's characters that use mana. There's a lot of them that can provide healing. Some of them are considered primary healers, some are considered auxiliary healers. And then there's some mages that have a built-in healing ability, but they're not considered a primary healer because the healing that their kit provides is kind of abstract, not really a noticeable change, and doesn't really make a huge difference in a team fight, but it's there to provide some sort of relief. And then when Overwatch 2 came out, or not Overwatch 2, but Overwatch, when it came out, I actually picked support as my primary role. I've always loved being a supporting type character because my DPS has never been there, so to speak. I'm not entirely 100% with hit scan heroes, and obviously what you see in the background is Luna Snow. Luna Snow was the first support hero I picked up when Rivals dropped. The thing that kind of differentiates Rivals from Overwatch is the way the heroes are actually played in the support role, and why support is actually much harder to play in Rivals than it is in Overwatch or any other game that has a supporting type of class where you can heal. That reason being, in Overwatch, every single support hero there actually had more of like a hybrid type kit. They provide good amount of healing, good amount of burst healing, good amount of healing over time, but they also have the defensive capabilities to actually defend themselves from a dive character or multiple dive characters. Take, for example, one of my favorite support heroes from Overwatch, Kiriko. I love the fact that she's a hit scan hero. Her projectiles are incredibly fast. She has really good headshot damage, really good damage potential overall. I love the fact that she can actually fill that hybrid position. You don't really need a DPS character per se when Kiriko can actually fill that role pretty well. She also has good burst healing. I can't remember her kit at this point because it's been so long since I played Overwatch. I actually stopped playing Overwatch entirely when it was halfway through. I think it was the second season when it was... Oh man, what's her face? She was one of the new tank heroes, the one with the shotgun and the throwing knife. I forgot her name. But she had a mythic skin in that battle pass. I didn't finish that battle pass. I actually kind of quit halfway through that season. So I'm not sure what Overwatch is like nowadays. I don't think I'm ever going to go back to it. My days of Overwatch is gone. And then of course Rivals came around. I never played the open, or not the open, but the closed beta. I did hear about it though, being a new hero shooter in a 6v6 format. And I thought maybe it'd be a good time to come back to it. So then when Rivals drops, I look at the roster, and even though I'm kind of big on Marvel, I'm not too familiar with some of the newer heroes. So that's actually why I took a liking to Luna, because I was familiar with the other strategists at the time. Luna, I had no idea who she was. So I picked her up, I started playing around with her, and it turns out she is actually pretty fun to play. I love the hybrid feel that she brings to her kit. She has good amount of damage potential. I love that her basic attack is just a burst fire ability. She also has the ability to freeze an enemy in place, although granted I wish that the freezing projectile actually would move a little bit faster, kind of be more like hit scan almost, because right now it's kind of a 50-50 on whether or not you can actually land it properly. Although there are some moments where I'll clutch it and actually hit a Black Panther or Spider-Man or just some hyper movement hero. But otherwise, I do love how her basic attack also is her healing potential. Kind of different, whereas, in Overwatch, usually I think the only other person who had that type of ability was Ana, where her basic attacks would either heal teammates or damage enemies. I kind of like that aspect of it. Condenses the kit a bit and doesn't make her kit too bloated. That's kind of the reason why I like Ana and Luna in particular. And then of course the ult. I love that it's a nice AoE ult, provides good movement, a good way to keep advancing a target or an objective like the convoy or payload or whatever that Marvel calls it. I guess they call it a convoy. But I love that aspect of the ult. And of course, the ult isn't invisible like everyone says. I've been killed in the ult many times by an Iron Man ult, by a Magneto ult, or just a convergence of just nothing but raw firepower from the enemy team, and they just kill me instantly anyway. So I mean, there's still ways to still deal with Luna. Otherwise, she's always going to be my primary healer. Whenever she is picked, I'll actually always fall back on Sue Storm. In fact, my two lords were actually Luna Snow and Sue Storm, even though I've been playing Luna longer than Sue was, because, you know, Sue wasn't around at the time when I started playing, because, you know, day one I was playing Rivals, day one I was already playing Luna. But for some reason, Sue's kit is actually far more optimized than Luna's kit, and for some reason I was just using Sue Storm nonstop. Every time I had the chance to insta-lock a healer, I was always insta-locking Sue Storm because she's incredibly fun to play, very easy to use. She's also has much better defensive capabilities against diving heroes, especially with her invisibility. The thing I love about Sue's ult is when you pop it, it actually shields everyone inside. You know, you can't see it unless you actually go into the ult itself. Again, she can die in that ult too, so she's not totally invincible. What brings me to making this video, and that was kind of just like my summary of how I feel about supports, why I main supports. There's a lot to do with them, but at the same time, I have to disagree with people, you know, people who don't play healers when they say healing is the easiest role to do. In Marvel Rivals, it's the hardest support, or not the hardest support, it's the hardest class you can use in any game, period. If you're playing Smite or Star Trek Online or any of these other games where you have supporting classes that can actually keep your teammates healed or keep a constant amount of crowd control on enemies, it's so much easier because you don't really have to worry about dive potential. Even in Overwatch, it was so much easier to deal with a dive meta. You know, it was easy to deal with a Genji or a Hanzo or whoever was trying to dive you. It was so much easier to deal with as opposed to Rivals. In Rivals, as a strategist, it feels like you're almost handicapped by force, because I feel like there's more dive heroes than there are counter dive heroes. I don't see a whole lot of people ever making the switch to actually make the effort to help out the supports and countering the dive. You know, Mr. Fantastic, Scarlet Witch, obviously Namor, you know, those are three duelists who excel at countering dive heroes. Although, to be frank, between the three, you know, Namor is the go-to for countering, especially with Season 2 and his new team-up ability with the Hulk, with his Gamma Charge on Monstro. It's really strong. It helps a lot with dealing with Black Panther and Spider-Man. Mr. Fantastic, you know, he actually can lock down with his arms. I love that, the way he can actually bounce you back and actually cancel out your dash attacks or anything like that. And then obviously with Scarlet Witch, you have her chaos bubble, which actually completely stops enemies. I have clutched up so many times saving my healers when I'm using Scarlet Witch. I'll pop a bubble right on top of the healer, and as a Spider-Man tries to come in and goes in with the amazing combo, he's stopped dead in his tracks, and then we instantly give him to death. It's always satisfying to watch. I think for me, when I'm trying to help out, when I'm not supporting, when I'm not healing, and I'm using a duelist, or well, mostly a duelist, yeah. If I see no one is actually trying to make the effort to help out our backline, and this is because, you know, I'm a support main, you know, I understand what it's like to not get help from your team getting peel, or to just overall deal with the dive meta. I'll always make the switch to picking out a character that is good against dive. I, for one, absolutely hate Namor. I don't like Namor's playstyle. Even though Namor is pretty basic, he's pretty easy to learn. Just trying to nail down the positions of his monsters to make the most out of the damage potential from it. I think that's the only tricky part. Otherwise, Namor's pretty easy, but I legit don't like playing Namor. I don't know. I just don't. I'll make the effort to actually learn how to use Namor if it means having the idea that supports will have at least some safety net, knowing that they have at least one player watching their back. Because again, I know what it's like being a support mate and not having any type of help at all, no matter how many times I mark a Vanguard. Like here, like this Mr. Fantastic, I was trying to mark him because, you know, my mic is turned off. I can't mark Mr. Fantastic while he's ulting, to let people know, like, hey, you know, Mr. Fantastic's in the back line. He's ulting me, and then he takes me out. We try and restart this. And again, as you can see, Mr. Fantastic is over me. Once I go invisible, it does move out. He tries to go back to the front line. But either way, it's kind of an example that, you know, Mr. Fantastic actually is not too bad on a dive. Although I kind of hate Mr. Fantastic in the fact that he's kind of more like a pseudo tank, so to speak. So he's actually pretty strong. That's kind of increasing the amount of dive variety that that there is right now, I'm dealing with a lot of Hulk, Emma, Venom, Captain America, Black Panther, Spider-Man. Usually all those heroes are now together in one team, and when it's like that, there is basically no point in being a strategist, because you're not going to have players to counter those heroes. You're not going to have a Wolverine, you're not going to have a Mr. Fantastic, you're not going to have a Namor, you're not going to have a Magneto, you're not going to have a Hulk. There is no peel, there is no saving your backline, kind of pointless. And there's many times where I'll get into a game, and these are all quick play games, by the way. I am not touching ranked until they sort out what's going on with the point system with ranked and that individual performance stuff. I mean, being a support main is already difficult enough as it is. So until they get that sorted out, I am not touching ranked. Right now, I only went up one division since Season 2 dropped, because I was at Diamond 1 as my all-time high, and then it dropped down 9 divisions, so now I was in Silver 3. I just got back up to Silver 2, and I'm just going to stay there again until the points get rectified and fixed, and probably just revert it back to the way it was before. Another thing, too, is I mentioned earlier that Luna Snow and Sue Storm are both of my lords. My third upcoming lord is actually Adam Warlock. What's strange about Adam Warlock is he actually is pretty fun to play. But the thing I don't agree, even though this was based off of, just the highest levels of play, because in Eternity, Adam Warlock is actually he's a really strong pick. He's always used, actually, because people in that kind of level of play will actually do their best to protect Adam, and then he ends up becoming a really tough hero to dive. But at the same time, that's only like the top 1% of players who use Adam Warlock, and yet the nerf was based off that play alone, off the top 1% play, rather than just the general public that use Adam Warlock. He's already a really difficult hero to use, on top of the strategist role overall being really difficult to use. The skill ceiling for a strategist is way higher than a duelist, and obviously way higher than a tank. There's just way too much effort that you have to put into being just a competent strategist, and the competency, actually, you have to worry about keeping yourself well protected, so to speak. So you kind of have to force yourself to stay within the confines of your DPS, so that way when they see an enemy hero coming in, they're kind of already magnetized to that hero, wanting to take him out, just because they're DPS. They don't know any better, they don't know anything about helping out their backline or anything, and I deal with that way too often. It's pretty much a guarantee at this point. Even if a new strategist were to come out, there is never going to be such a thing as an insta-lock healer. I've never seen insta-lock healers before. I've always see insta-lock tanks and insta-lock DPS, but I never see the insta-lock healers. I never even saw insta-lock healers in Overwatch. And in Overwatch, every single hero is a lot more viable, at least in my opinion, because when it comes to the roster, and I'll just say this really quick, the appeal to me as far as the heroes go in their kits in Rivals is not as appealing to me as they are in Overwatch. And what I mean is, I can pick up any hero in Overwatch, quickly get used to him, and then I can quickly pick out if whether or not I'll like him or not. But there is never one hero in Overwatch where I'm like, I never want to use this hero again. Here in Rivals, there actually is feeling I get. I don't really like playing Black Panther. I don't like playing Loki. I don't like playing Venom, Magneto, Doctor Strange. From time to time, I don't enjoy playing Hawkeye, even though I played a lot of Hanzo in my time, and basically Hanzo and Hawkeye are basically the same thing. I mean, I played a lot of Black Widow. I was really good with the sniper characters in Overwatch, Black Widow and Hawkeye, or Black Widow and Hanzo. But in here, they just don't appeal to me as much, and I literally don't know why. I can't tell you why. That's kind of where it sits at, which means the options for me when it comes to trying to make counter picks and such, if I'm not healing, which is kind of rare at the times, most of the times I'm stuck healing, just because, again, everyone insta-locks DPS and tanks. I never get a chance to actually get into a game early enough to where I can actually make a pick that I want. It gets to a point where I'm just kind of bored at this moment with healing, because that's all I do. That's pretty much all I'm ever stuck with doing. I don't really get a whole lot of time to ever play something that isn't heal. Although I'm kind of close to, well, as I said earlier, I'm close to making a third Lord and Strategist with Adam Warlock, but I'm also close to becoming a Lord Scarlet Witch, which is actually pretty nice. I do love Scarlet Witch. She's pretty nice to play, and lately I've been enjoying her more as a counter to dive meta, so I'm not trying to be as aggressive with Scarlet Witch. I'm usually kind of sticking with my healers and making sure that they're safe. just because I've quickly learned that Scarlet Witch actually is pretty good against dive heroes. That kind of leads to the whole thing of the mid-season patch for 2.5, and I'm actually looking forward to it. I'm curious as to see which strategists are going to be getting the increase in damage potential between Luna Snow, Adam Warlock, and Mantis. I would think that Adam Warlock would probably benefit a little bit more from that damage buff than Mantis or Luna Snow, because again, Luna has built-in burst. You don't have to actually try and work for that burst. You don't have to wait forever to charge up a burst like you do with Adam Warlock. Mantis can buff herself with that steroid of hers that increases your damage output, and then Luna obviously just has the burst, and her burst is actually pretty strong, especially if you get those headshots. Very satisfying to land. So hopefully, the other thing too is with Adam Warlock in particular, they actually possibly another charge to his healing beam. Right now, the healing beam is way too situational. You can't waste it on one hero, because then that heal is just gonna branch out to several other heroes who don't need the heal. It's always best to kind of let your other support heal that one player and kind of wait for multiple heroes to kind of have some damage done to their health before you let out a healing ray. Because I'll be honest and say that Adam Warlock is not a primary healer. He is more of an auxiliary healer or even a tertiary healer. In my opinion, in some of my experiences with Warlock, I've always thought it best to save his healing ray for team fights. In my opinion, Adam Warlock is the go-to healer if you want to stay in a team fight longer, because it has such good burst. But at the same time, you only get the 2 charges, and you got to really be aware of every single person on your team who's in that team fight. You got to be aware of all their health at the same time before you decide to let out that charge, and suddenly you're left with just the 1 charge and you're not sure if whether or not you should save it when you see one person's about to die but everyone else is doing okay. Do you think it's worth using that 1 charge to save that one person that's almost about to die, especially if it's a tank? If it's a tank, then I think it would be a good call to go ahead and use it while everyone else is still good on health. But if it's a DPS, honestly, I think I would try and hold off on it and possibly let your other healer take on that 1 DPS, trying to keep him in the fight still. I think Adam Warlock just needs a little bit more versatility. He feels so, I don't know, he feels so confined. He feels so claustrophobic in his abilities, if that makes sense. You really have to pick and choose when to use that healing properly. Not only do you have to pick and choose when to use that heal, but if something happens and then an enemy pops their ult and then it's a sudden team wipe, if you have your ult, you can go ahead and pop it. But the one thing too is you have to make sure you're in a good position to grab everyone who just died. You also have to make sure that your soul bond is ready, and you have to hope you have at least 1 charge ready before you make the res. Otherwise, you res your guys, and if the enemy finds out where you res them, it's just going to be another quick wipe. So, that's another thing too. So I'm hoping that Adam gets the most benefits from the mid-season update, but we'll wait and see what happens.